Welcome to Love and Trauma, the real deal. I'm Danielle Sebastian, best-selling author, coach, and yes, I've been through the marriage trenches myself. This show is all about how to actually deal with trauma in relationships and make it work without losing your mind. If you're ready for honest talk, no fluff, and tools that cut through the noise, tune in because let's face it, love can be a bit of a mess, but it's a mess worth figuring out. This is Love and Trauma, the real deal.
Friends, today's episode is one you don't want to miss. Let me ask you this. Have you ever wondered why the same arguments keep happening in your relationship, no matter how hard you try to fix them? Or why your partner reacts in ways that just don't make sense? My guest today, Pia Valenzuela Escudero, has some powerful answers, and her story is one you'll carry with you long after this episode ends. Pia grew up as an immigrant. She navigated a brand new culture, language, and way of life. And that experience gave her a deep compassion for people who carry invisible struggles while trying to build something better for themselves and their families. And here's the part I love. Pia just doesn't know trauma from textbooks or research. She's lived it. She's seen firsthand how trauma can reshape relationships. That personal story is what fuels her mission to break those painful cycles and bring more healing and connection. For more than 30 years, she's been leading the way in mental health and trauma-informed care. At the Los Angeles Unified School District, she directed the nation's largest school-based wellness team, and she was part of the original team with LAUSD, the RAND Corporation, and UCLA that developed the Cognitive Behavioral Intervention for Trauma in Schools, the first evidence-based group intervention proven to help kids reduce PTSD, depression, and all the ripple effects that trauma leaves behind. And today, it's used across the country. In our conversation, Pia and I get real about how trauma shows up in everyday relationships, why even our best attempts to help can sometimes backfire, and the small, doable steps that couples and families can take to finally break the cycle. And let me tell you, this isn't just about surviving. Pia's all about resilience, love, and hope. And she shows us how healing our relationships can actually change the bigger picture, our families, our communities, and even our society. So grab your coffee, settle in, and stay with us to the end because Pia shares some wisdom that just might change the way you see your relationship and yourself. So much for being here today and chatting with me. How is your afternoon going?
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much. I love talking to other women and lifting others as they go through this journey of life. So thanks for the opportunity to chat.
I know. I'm so excited to talk because you have personal experience and then lots of professional experience as well that I know will just really help a lot of people. So I'm just going to start out with, it looks like you spent decades in mental health leadership, especially trauma-informed care. So can you just, for someone who's never really heard that term, how would you explain trauma-informed care in a way that connects to everyday relationships?
Wow. So a little bit more than 25 years ago, I was a social worker in the school system, and I had the privilege of, I was working with Los Angeles Unified School District. I had the privilege to team up with folks from UCLA and RAND, major think tanks and universities, who started asking about the work of mental health in schools. And we became sort of innovators in the area of trauma, asking about trauma, asking students and talking to teachers. And there's, in this process, this concept of trauma-informed care became sort of a response of what children, adults, and people exposed to trauma need. So a trauma-informed care system is a system. It could be a family, it could be a medical center, it could be an office or a school, a classroom, any type of system that is aware that some people using the system, participating in the system, have trauma. And trauma meaning, right, an overwhelming event that overcomes the capacity, renders you helpless, hopeless, right? It's a very scary moment. So folks who have been exposed to trauma respond differently to trauma triggers, environment. So a trauma-informed system is one where safety is really acknowledged. Folks need to feel safe, right? So there's different elements. There's a trustworthiness. You work on trusting the folks that are coming before you, where you provide folks with choice, where you provide opportunities to collaborate and maybe understand there's cultural components involved, and really being aware that folks that are coming to you have a reality that needs to be addressed in order to be able to move forward in a healthy way. So for a classroom, for example, how does a teacher set up safety and trustworthiness and collaboration, and knowing that someone who has been exposed to trauma may not learn well or may escape, spiritually or mentally if they're yelled at or they're made feel in a certain way where it triggers them, right? So there's fugue. So it's a concept that 25 years ago we started talking to schools and we started talking to teachers and parents, and it's unfortunate, I must say, that today more than ever we need trauma-informed systems, and we have sort of forgotten how important these elements are. So it's a nice reminder to know that these systems need to be put in place for everyone to thrive.
So you were a teacher at that time.
I'm a social worker.
You were a social worker in the schools.
I'm still a social worker. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I started in the schools back almost 35, almost 40 years ago, where there was few social workers in schools. We worked with children who needed help and families. And now there's more mental health and social workers in schools. So we've traveled a journey to acknowledge that in order for a child to learn well, we have to look at the whole child and be emotionally well. Yes.
What was it like being a social worker in the schools?
You know what? I think folks who are doing this work today, there are more and more of us, and more need for social workers and counselors and therapists in schools. It's a rich ground to see the best of children, to be part of their school experience, to get to know them when they're little. But then you see some of the saddest, more difficult situations that happen to a family, and yet they show up to come to school. So it's a rich opportunity to do really good work. But you see the challenge for a teacher to have 20, 25, sometimes 30 children, all with incredible stories and journeys they're traveling to come to school to learn. Just learning by itself is hard where they don't have additional support. So a teacher and a team of supports is really critical.
How would you end up getting involved with a kiddo? Was it usually behavioral issues? Tell me.
Yeah, I worked different programs. I worked with special ed population at times when children had an IEP for emotional issues. They're very intensive issues, so they were very delineated what impeded a child from learning. But I also worked at a clinic where we received referrals from school with specific issues. But then I worked at a school full-time where you became part of the community. And it's children that are not engaging. There's a change in behavior. Sometimes they're not playing with their classmates. We also had so many situations where a mom knew how to get their kids to school and drop them off, and then speak to the office and say, my husband passed away last night and I haven't told my kids and we have this tragedy. Or basically anything that's in the news too in Los Angeles, whether it's a car accident or it's something that happens in the community, impacts children. So there's individual situations that are happening for children, family situation, community situations. So what I learned doing trauma work in schools, we initially started screening children, and we thought we had a program with immigrants actually from Russia, Korea, Spanish, Chinese. We had like 8 languages, Armenian, and we were asking about immigrants' journey, like how much trauma are they coming into our schools? And we found out through these screening tools that children, yes, had been exposed to trauma in their home countries, but also along the way, traveling to the United States, and a lot of community and familiar trauma when they were established here. So trauma was prevalent. And as we continued doing these screenings, we learned that 9th graders, just about everybody, had some type of traumatic experience. Interestingly, this was before COVID. So now that we've all been impacted by COVID, have been impacted by world events and community events, I think trauma is so prevalent. And so when I started, people didn't want to talk about trauma. They said, oh, I don't have trauma in my classroom. But now we know this trauma-informed lens that everybody needs special care, special ways to get engaged because they're coming in with different stories, is more relevant and more cognizant of educators right now. Unfortunately, it hasn't decreased. If anything, things have increased for children and families and communities.
Yeah, when you think about the ripple effects of trauma, and you just hit the nail on the head, especially intergenerational and historical trauma, what have you seen are some of the subtle ways that it can show up in our closest relationships without us even realizing it?
Wow. Well, it's almost, with my colleagues, we call it, it's almost like the fluoride in the water. We're all drinking it. We've all have it. We've all gone through it. We've all have it in our DNA. Some of us have had it in the past, some of it are living it now, and some of us will have more traumatic experiences in the future. I think it's very, very common to start talking about it. I think that's the big thing. A lot of families, a lot of folks don't talk about it. There's a lot of shame, there's a lot of guilt of some things that have happened. But once I start talking to my parents about their parents, and you start hearing stories of our great-grandmothers, our grandmothers, grandfathers, and then parents, and then our own children, there's definitely traumatic events that have influenced us in so many ways, and historical. I happen to be an immigrant myself as well. I moved to Santa Monica when I was in 5th grade from Santiago, Chile. And you bring a lot of different cultural aspects into your into your life story, right? And you're sort of taught certain things like, sometimes there's poverty, right? So you're taught the messaging generationally is you have to work really hard. No matter what, you have to strive hard, and education's important, and moving forward is important. At some cost sometimes that are hard. Sometimes there's issues in the home. There was a study too that was done, and I don't know if you've had a chance to talk to other guests about ACEs, the adverse childhood experience, how prevalent this population in this Kaiser study was on folks that had, it really impacts their lifespan. So folks who have had a lot of traumatic experiences have a lot of maladaptive behaviors and circumstances. There's higher smoking, drinking, abuse, physical, emotional, and sexual abuse, and so forth. So there's these adverse childhood experiences that ultimately could lead to a shorter lifespan if you don't have ways to adopt healthy habits. So it's complex. It's big. It's public. It's worldwide, but it's also country specific, community specific, family specific, and then of course individual specific. Yeah.
And I just don't feel like we're making a dent, right? That much. I just don't know how much of a dent us being aware, right, is the first step. But it's like now we've got to figure out, how to do this better. Can
Absolutely.
you just tell me, as I want to know what it's like to immigrate here? You said fifth grade.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, please tell me, what was that like? Were you excited to move to the United States? Were you mad? Tell me more about that.
Well, it's interesting now at my age, I'm really reflecting on things very deeply, and especially since 6 months ago, my father passed, and he left this legacy behind that you sort of don't really digest things until after, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
my dad, in 1973, I immigrated in 1974. There was an overthrow of a government in Chile, and they had a totalitarian dictator take over. And my dad sought better opportunities for us. He was a professor of medicine, so I was very blessed to have
Mm.
a father and a mother with good professional background. The universities were shutting down. There was a dictator, and things were just falling apart in the country. So my dad saw
Was it scary?
it was very
Did
scary.
you feel it? Did
Yeah,
you feel it as a fifth grader? Were you scared?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. I think when I was 8, this happened. We were living in a very safe neighborhood, but there was a lot of political things happening. And one day, people stayed home. I guess there was fear that something was going to happen. And right close to us, there were these warplanes that flew very low and bombed the La Moneda, which is the government house where the Salvador Allende, the president, was. And they also bombed his home, which were just a couple miles from my home. So I actually experienced
Oh, Dad.
the bombs. We were put in the basement with my siblings. The adults were outside checking things out. But it was very, very sudden, very traumatic, and we just kind of adapted to, people had to be home early in the evening. There was lockdowns, and there was scarcity of food. I remember my mom volunteered trying to help folks in poor communities, bring food to them because folks were experiencing hunger in a lot of challenging times. And then all of a sudden we came to Santa Monica. It was actually incredibly shocking. I came from a private school. We wore nice uniforms, all girls school. We spoke proper English. I did think I was speaking English when I arrived, and I learned that I didn't. I would say
Oh,
things like, "Pass me the rubber, please," and I didn't know it was eraser. So I think I got extra help, but it
okay.
was interesting. I moved to a beach town where the boys and the girls all had long hair. I couldn't tell initially who was the boy, who was the girl. I figured that out. But I acclimated very well. Um, I think we were very blessed. There was 4 siblings that we grew up together. But you miss your family and you miss your friends. And that was the time I used to get US mail letters from my girlfriends, and phone calls were hard to make. Things are a little different now with FaceTime. But yeah, you leave behind a world and you start at a new one.
A totally different world, too.
And I'm blessed. I mean, my dad had a
Yeah,
good job, and
yeah.
things were hard because we were a big family, but he did it, and to know that he did it, so generationally, he was the only child. He had a mother who had been widowed early, and a stepdad, but you hear these stories. He was taught very early to work hard, to education was a way out.
And
And
it really was
yeah,
for you guys,
yeah.
right? It
My
left
dad
you
was
with
born in the 30s.
opportunities, with choices.
Yeah, my dad was born in the 30s. So he was like a baby of, of very difficult times. And my grandmother, you think about, and you think 100 years, isn't that long ago? And the generations have had very different realities. And yet we have our reality today. So really, we have not progressed. And really, we need to shout from the rooftops how we need to really honor individuals and take care of one another and create safe spaces and collaborative spaces and trustworthy, like those elements are just, we're so far away from it. I can't imagine 25 years ago thinking that we would be in this. I'm really, as you and I have been talking, I'm really imagining a just and healthy world for all of us. We deserve that, and we need to work towards that.
I agree. And so then tell me, so you came over in fifth grade, and then I think that probably your background had quite a bit to do with you choosing your profession as a social worker.
Both. I had a good counselor at one point, and I didn't have good counselor at one point. So I thought, gosh,
Really?
I want to have
Yeah.
a good counseling system. I wanted to help in the schools. And when I looked at becoming a psychologist or becoming other types of counselors, I really wanted the mental health. So I found this mental health program that I really love with a credential in schools. And really, children have such potential, and parents are really engaged in children's education. So it's a natural place to sort of surpass and transcend issues in order to do well in school. So I love the school system. I love the ability to start a new school year, start fresh, have strategies to do well and keep doing better. I think the schools are the right place to bring services to children so they can thrive.
So I'm interested in hearing your perspective, because I have a personal story, with trauma where I found out 3 years into my marriage that my husband had had a terrible history of abuse as a child in the Catholic system. It was a system. So the church and the school that he went to were very connected. And it just breaks my heart that there are all these kids out there that are having terrible things happen to them and they never tell a soul. But I know for a fact that there were probably people that recognized signs in my husband and they didn't know what to do with it. Where do you think we are failing our kids from that standpoint and being able to intervene as a community, as a society?
Well, I share your history. I know what you're talking about. I also married someone that had untreated trauma. And I don't want to go into his story because he's not public about it. It's his story and it's his challenges. But it goes to the point of it being such a silent monster
Yes.
because people don't talk about it. You can't imagine. And then maybe at points you do try to ask for help, but people just don't believe you, right? So I don't think we're there yet. I think that we have many programs. I know the churches have established gatekeeping programs, and I have to tell you, I think that COVID made things worse. I think when kids came out of COVID, we were looking forward to, starting in a healthy pathway in person. And it took a couple months to see kids were not all right. When there's issues of abuse and issues with adverse childhood experiences, it became more prominent when children spend more time at home. So the dysfunction continues. If anything, it's gotten worse. So I think we have to have these conversations amongst women, amongst parents, And it's not an issue out there. It's continuously right before us. We just have to be aware. If it feels wrong, if it looks wrong, if it makes you question, do something about it. Because predators prey on children that are vulnerable in children-specific places like schools, like churches, like anywhere children are. They sort of have a way of finding themselves and being very trickery about it. So yes, I'm very hopeful. I speak of light and good energy, but I know that there's evil and there's dark energy, and they sort of have to coexist. I think you can't just be Pollyanna about this. Things are great. No, we have to make them great, and we have to protect our children.
If you suspect something, right? What would, let's just say in the school or the church even, right? In these community activities, what do you think is the best place for people to reach out? Where would you tell them to start?
Well, it's interesting. A lot of times children give you clues. You just don't believe them or you dismiss them. So believe children. Find out. You don't have to go and interrogate them, but ask questions. And I think getting facts and really seeing what's happening, talk to another adult, but also report it. I know the system is not perfect, and actually there's a lot of problems with the system. It's not funded to have a good ratio of social workers that come to the home to investigate, and the investigation is very complex. So again, that system needs to be funded and corrected because it's just not well. But there's stories in the news. There's a current story now in Los Angeles of a family that a child disappeared and it's suspected there's child abuse. Who knew about it? You know, who saw that? And who talked to who? You can talk to law enforcement. You can talk to, there's child abuse hotline. But definitely we need child protectors at every level, every day, everywhere.
Yeah, I think, I think it would be, for schools, the social worker would be a great place to start. Don't you think? Whoever is there, the counselor, or somebody who works with them. I think churches are a little tougher. I think you kind of got to go outside,
And we
to see
have
what's going on.
trainings every year for folks to report it and not
Yeah.
dismiss it, or not just say, hey, he's like that, but there's always the scenarios where people find ways to taking children home after school without parental permission, or you kind of groom children. The grooming is where people can see that that's not okay. Stop that. The grooming of befriending a child above and beyond
Yeah.
natural boundaries. Those boundaries need to be clear. They need to be very specific, and children be taught that they have boundaries and that they're going to be believed.
Yeah. I do think that there could be some work there, with kiddos, about coming forward.
Yeah. And we have more and more materials and resources for that. I think every parent
Okay.
should definitely have a book. There's so many books. I don't want to mention one over the other. There's curriculums in the classroom. It needs to be a continuous conversation. If it doesn't feel good, or these are your private parts, teaching children that's very important.
The silence about it, I think, is what's keeping us from moving forward. The everybody's just suffering in silence, and the more that we can, be there about, hey, if you ever wanted to reach out to somebody, this is where you would go. Those kind of things, those conversation with kiddos, because they don't know any different. They
Yeah.
don't know any different.
And if there's somewhere that they want to come home, no questions asked, call me. I'll pick you up. If at any point you need me, I'm there. And not force kids to have to do something because they're being told to, right? And just like they're humans, and they know their instincts too. And if they don't want to do something with an adult, that's okay.
Yeah, that is okay. Well, it sounds like you, like me, have had some experience being in a relationship with someone who experienced trauma. Can you share an example about how unaddressed trauma between two people can create a cycle of conflict and disconnection?
Banging your head against the wall trying to navigate the complexities of a relationship impacted by childhood trauma, it doesn't have to be this daunting. When you're married to a partner with unresolved childhood trauma, it can feel like you're walking on eggshells, never quite knowing what will set them off. No matter what you try, it feels like there's always something triggering another emotional response that seems completely out of context. And the harder you try to fix it, the more discouraged you feel. So what's the issue here? Navigating marriage with a trauma survivor is different. The love languages don't work. Date nights don't work. Self-help books don't help. But here's the good news. I've created something that does work. Something built from years of hard-earned lessons and real-life experience. Ready to take the first step toward real change? Let's talk. I'm offering a free one-on-one call where we'll dive into what's going on in your relationship and figure out a way forward together. This isn't just another quick chat. It's a chance to finally be heard, to share what you're going through with someone who truly gets it. No judgment, just real support. So if you're ready to start making sense of it all and find a little more peace in your marriage, book your free call now. Your happiness, your peace, and your relationship are worth it. Let's do it together.
I think there's a difference between a relationship where there is trust and authenticity, where you can be vulnerable and be fully accepted, no matter what happens to you. You know, you're going to be there for each other. A relationship where you could talk about your weaknesses, and maybe you don't know why. Maybe you're not in tune. Maybe some people forget, or maybe they just push it out. But show your vulnerability. Talk about emotional issues. I think intimacy is very difficult. We don't do that well, and especially now with these phones and like social media. So many people are sitting next to each other and just totally disconnected. But an authentic relationship where you can be vulnerable is definitely an antidote to having, again, maladaptive behaviors that make you push away reality or your anxiety or your fears, or you just, kind of avoid that. And so sometimes you can't have it with your partner because there's a lot of shame and a lot of blame, right? Whether it's for yourself or your parents or whatever happened to you. So therapy is hard. Or now we have all these somatic ways of working through some of our trauma along with therapy, whether it's yoga, doing body work, just releasing that tension and being whole. I think so many of us are fragmented and hide certain parts. And I'm doing, I retired 2 years ago. I've done a little journey of started to meditate and started to do some self work. And I'm learning about energy work, and we have energy centers, right? So some of this shame and guilt and loss and these feelings that are hard stay with us. They're part of our energy centers, whether in our heart or in our throat or in our gut. We have all different ways that we hold energy. And there's an opportunity in our lifetime to heal some of that energy, work through it. Ideally, you do it in partnership with a good partner that allows you to be authentic and do your work, and with friends that will support you, with circles of women that I think the power of women having each other is very, it's so powerful, and finding the right community where you could be authentic. I also think all of us are messed up. I actually use the F word, so I don't know if you use that, but we are all fucked up. It's what we
Yeah.
do with it. That's
We all have stuff. We
yeah,
all have stuff that we're reactive to. Everybody does. Yeah.
absolutely. And when I
Yeah.
was young, I didn't believe that. I was told,
Yeah.
I started therapy and I was told, well, so what are your issues? I have no issues. Everything's great. And it's like, no, I'm humble enough to know we're all fucked up. It's what are we doing about it and how are we going to be strategic and really choose a path and get there. I think we can also manifest our pathways very strategically and overcome some of the pain and some of the burdens that we carry. So, yeah, that was a long answer.
Oh, I love it. So I love that you've been a pioneer. You were talking about how you were working with other organizations to bring evidence-based programs to schools, right? It was one of them called CBITS. What's
Yeah,
that one? What is
so
that?
CBITS. So 25 years ago,
CBITS.
yeah, so that
Okay.
25 years ago when I was working in one of these clinics in the San Fernando Valley, we had these UCLA scholars and RAND researchers who said, hey, how do you know that what you're doing works? And we're like, help us find out, right? So
Yeah.
as we were trying to meet, we always had to disrupt the meeting until we had a crisis in a school or something was there was a shooting here or something we got deployed or
Oh,
rearranged schedule. And so the researchers, our colleagues said, how often do these events happen? It's like every day, constantly, all over, you know? So that's where we started to ask, how often have you had a traumatic event? And then when we knew that was a significant portion, we developed a 10 session CBT, cognitive behavior therapy session, where we
oh,
taught kids about
nice.
trauma. We also pulled them individually so they could do their trauma narrative and tell their story and then reframe it. So, really, the power of doing this in a group is really amazing because kids think they're the only ones. And then they find out no,
Yes.
it's something else happened to somebody else. And so, what we learned there was that it was a very effective program that children actually got to finish because it was in schools.
Yes. You didn't
And,
have to worry about the family being able
right,
to bring them.
right. And then children
Indeed.
came to school, right? And then they were able to connect it to their academic success. They attended better, they finished school better. So we had a lot of exciting, innovative practices happening in schools. And we taught teachers about this. This is what's happening in your classroom. So they learned better skills as well.
Wow. And it doesn't seem to be everywhere like that, right?
You mean the group?
That type of program is not mainstream.
Actually, it has become mainstream. It was the first evidence-based group practice in the United States,
Okay.
and we have trained. That was early 2000s. We trained folks in Katrina after the Katrina hurricane. We've trained people across the United States, and it's now there's now more of a longer roster of evidence-based practices that are trauma specific. This
Okay.
happens to be the group. But yeah, we continue to train. We actually have one that talks a little bit about cultural and diversity issues. And so it keeps modifying, but it's very much alive in the school campuses. Not every campus, but many campuses.
Many campuses. But I love the like 10 session thing
Yeah.
because it doesn't just take one, right? It's not just one or two session thing that's going to make a difference.
Yeah. And it's also one of the few times kids can really be verbal with each other and safe, right? And learn skills.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they
Yeah.
and we did a pre-test and a post-test, and there was incredible decrease of depression and anxiety and all those things that our kids have right now. So it's almost like how do we do that in all schools across?
Everybody. Yeah. Oh, I love that. It should be one of their classes, in my opinion, something like that. I love it. And so, what are some of the lessons from those interventions that you think could also help adults repair and strengthen their relationships?
Well, the biggest thing I think is really basic is the psychoeducation, which is
Yeah.
learning about trauma, right?
Yeah.
What it is and how it will affect your sometimes sleeping, learning why you're behaving certain ways, and giving yourself time to know that you're adjusting. So this whole concept of trauma, right? It's been fascinating for me to remind people that have had a traumatic event to be really kind to yourself within the first 3 months, and then really observe things that are impacting your daily living. Be kind to yourself. We tend to numb ourselves, like push it away, or get frustrated or work out harder, and really listening to our body, listening to our instincts, and then even taking it to 6 months after a traumatic event. If things are not getting back to normal, like really asking for help. Like it's okay to not be okay and get help. So that psychoeducation is one of the very basic, to teach also parents, expect children to not sleep well. So unfortunately, again, we just had another national tragedy with a school shooting. That community is not going to be okay for a very long time. So you can't expect children to be well, right? So it is important for them to get back to routine. It is important to get back to a school, but maybe not have a spelling test or a lesson plan, just being together. So we've learned a lot about what works and how to re-engage folks. But we're still making a lot.
Yeah, it isn't just get back to normal. That's not the answer.
No.
Just go back to normal.
And
No.
also that there are ways to digest this, whether it's talk therapy or body work, breath work, meditation. I mean, it really it's a whole. Again, your energy centers are really an opportunity to shift back to optimum level when they're not, because they've been disrupted and they've been impacted.
Yeah, I love that because I've talked to a lot of survivors on this show, and almost all of them didn't have just one thing that worked, right? It was a combination of things that really helped them heal. And for every one of them, it's just a little bit different, right? So there is no cookie cutter approach. It's about trying all new, different tactics and adding them together and coming up with your own special soup, right? Or special sauce that works for you and
Yeah.
not giving up.
Well, also, like when you take this concept of digesting some things, letting go and being
Yeah.
able to move forward. So you make really
Yeah.
good activities. So because some folks have such a hard time, they disengage, or they don't get back to normal, and it just it spirals in a negative way. And there's opportunities with very, very sensitive and care to get back. And ideally, one of the things that got me really jazzed when I was doing so much trauma work, and it could get really, really hard, and the burnout is real. The concept of post-traumatic growth was something that was very interesting to me, because it talked about resilience and it talked about a strength base. So there are very, very few folks that, after experiencing trauma, have this reawakening and this realignment and re-meaning of life, and they do better. And you see a lot of folks that become public speakers or become our role models. They did something that was bring new meaning and really had growth from a traumatic experience. I don't think we can say, while someone is going through it or going through very difficult times, hey, can't wait, it's going to get better. And it's like, you're going to have post-traumatic growth. No, it doesn't happen like that. But 10, 15 years down the line, you really can look back and say, these things had to happen for me to become the person that I am today. I can tell you that for my situation, that it's been about 15 years. I would have never imagined that my life would be what it is without having gone through the traumatic situations that I did. So there is post-traumatic growth ultimately. You have to be strategic, you have to be intentional, and you have to work towards that. It doesn't just happen.
Oh, I love that post-traumatic growth. That's amazing. Yes. So it's basically making a silver lining
Yes.
from what happened to you.
Yeah.
Oh, which is
Well,
just
and it's not just one thing. Like you said, there's
no.
different things that happen in childhood,
Yeah.
adolescence, and then, then we marry into it, then we have our families. I had this public arena, but I've gone back to my family as well of a lot of healing and my small circle. There's a lot of work to be done for all of us across every sphere that we are move in and out of.
Well, you have done some super amazing things. Oh my gosh, you should be very proud of how much you've done in this space, especially since I know you're reflecting.
Some folks, I've done some of my why work, right? The why, and some folks spend a lot of time figuring out what is my purpose, what is my mission,
Yeah,
and it's very clear for me that it's to serve and to help others really be on earth and have better skills to go through this journey on earth because it's challenging and it's also a great opportunity with hope. But serving others brings me a lot of healing and it reminds me of the journey. So yeah, I feel very grateful, but I feel like being of service continues. It's a forever.
of course. Yeah, I can't imagine ever letting this go, right? Till my death, great. Till I'm on my deathbed. Well, one last question for you. If you could distill your decades of experience into three non-negotiable practices for maintaining healthy relationships in the face of trauma, what would those three things be?
Non-negotiable practices.
Yeah.
One is meditation. For me, meditation is key. I have some really good days of meditation where it's magical experience, and I have some hard ones. So sometimes when I can't meditate, I just look at a candle and just bring peace and calm to my brain. I think doing your own work is very important so that you could be authentic. And so meditation, doing all kinds of work to just be at your very best, because that roller coaster is
Yeah.
daily consistent, but also so you can be authentic, so you can have authentic conversations and have real conversations. Like if there's a really hard topic to discuss with my partner, I have a current partner that we've learned intimacy and we both have done some hard work. And they're genuine conversations. We try not to have them too much because they're draining, but they're very purposeful. They're real, where we really can share our weaknesses, our feelings, and be vulnerable, and just love one another. So that that love unconditional it's always conditional in this world for many reasons, but you can get to it if you're really genuinely focus on what you want to express and how you want to have that conversation. So being authentic is really.
Yeah, I think so many of us, especially, lose ourselves. We don't even remember what we love anymore, right? Um,
Oh my gosh, when I first went into well, not first, but after being a mom and went to therapy, because I went to therapy across my graduate school. I was a mom, I worked, and I was a wife, and I was a daughter, and I was all these roles. And the
yeah.
therapist gave me an assignment that was just beyond, like it would just blew me away. I had to list 10 things that I really liked to do, or who like that represented me. And
Yeah.
I couldn't think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Like,
was like, wait a
whoa,
second.
all I do is
Yeah.
take the kids and da.
Yeah. And so it was like, well, I liked reading good books at one point, good novels, and I liked walking. And like, what did I like? I mean, who
Yeah.
am I, right?
Yes.
And so the next
Yes.
thing was I had to pick three and implement three. And it was like, that changed my life. I took baths and it was like, it is so hard
Oh,
to think about you when you're taking care of everybody and who are you, right? And then what are your boundaries? What does that look like? And so you really,
how do you make those things a priority?
well, that's what I'm saying, being
Right.
authentic. And you can't just say, hey, I need this because this is my boundary. Like, no,
Oh,
you know what really will work if I can just take a bath and
yeah.
do it in a
I
way
love this. I
where it's
love this.
communicating things because you want everyone to be well, but you need this, right? So how do you really learn to communicate your boundaries or what you need or what works for you? Sometimes the templates, we have to follow these templates. Everybody's doing it this way. It's like, no, let's do it a little differently because this may work for us. And then other people start looking at you saying, hey, really? You could do
Mhm.
things differently. You don't have to follow the
No.
leader and do it like every.
Date nights every Tuesday? No, you don't have to.
No,
It doesn't work
what
for you.
works? But
Yeah.
what is your ideal date? It could be totally different.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It could be brunch, could be coffee, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So your one was breathing meditation, inner, like
Yeah.
soul searching, don't you think? I agree with that one. I mean, because
Well,
you can't even come up with the things that you love that you were like you were just talking about unless you have a space to
right. And
allow
it's your
yourself to go
brain and
there.
your mind. So you get out of your
Yeah.
mind and you
Yeah.
really have beautiful visions and you start seeing, just meditation just stops the madness for me. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. And the
Being
second,
authentic, being authentic, right?
well, yeah, the second is just all work relating to being well
Being
yourself
well, right?
in
Working on
order to
yourself.
be an authentic and lead an authentic life with
Yeah.
your children, with your family, and that's hard.
Work.
Yeah. And with everyone, yeah, it's really hard, but I think you have
Yeah.
to do that work to be able to, it makes you really proud of yourself after. So yeah, I'm very proud of myself, but I know that the work continues. It's never
Yeah.
easy.
No, we're never, no. Do you
Yeah.
have a third one?
The third one.
Third non-negotiable.
Well, I think that the part that because I'm in this place, my kids are grown, and I'm in a beautiful time in my life. I want to do work. Um, I want to do work that's for myself and for others that improves society. So I think is just really having very strategic mapping out. I'm mapping out like what my intention is for the day. What are my priorities? I'm doing really strategic work, not just to get to the next year or the next 10 years, like really strategically is like, so that is energy work because I'm not putting my energy in areas where it leaks. I used to get, very sidetracked. Oh, let me do this. I mean, like that's just, I don't watch news anymore. There's things I just don't because it doesn't, contribute to me being a better person. So being really
Yeah.
strategic with, it goes with the authentic, but when you have tough conversations, even with your girlfriends or your children or your family, just being very intentional. You have to cut off a lot of fluff. It's challenging to live like that, but it's also trauma informed because then you're safe and then you create safe environments and your trustworthiness. So it kind of, you just help me go back into that big loop. It's like we want that system, but we can't get that system if we're not living that, you know? And we have to be a sanctuary for ourselves, to be a sanctuary to our relationships, to our families, and to our communities. Yeah,
Love that.
it's a big circle, but I feel like if you don't do that first with yourself, you cannot do it with
No.
your partner or your children. And then the cycles repeat themselves, even if we don't want to. The cycles are so ingrained.
I agree with you 100%. Those three things were also the very same things that actually helped me in my relationship. Getting back to my authentic self, not losing myself, right? Continuing to work on there. No, none of us is perfect. We all have, what did you call it? We all have crap that we need to continue to work on. And I also really incorporated breathing and meditating to give myself that space to process that. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for the work you're doing. Since I started listening to your podcast, I actually have been referring some friends and some younger women that are in difficult relationships because I've learned a lot. And I said to myself, gosh, 10, 15, 20 years ago, I didn't have a podcast that I could listen to. And the service that you're doing for women is like, yes, you're in a marriage, you're in a relationship, and you're a mother and you're taking care of everybody. And you hear self-care, but it's really much more than self-care. It's
It is.
creating a sanctuary and cutting the things that don't work and that have been part of your life, and changing and behaviors and thinking is hard until you
It's really hard.
yeah.
And we can't do it alone. I mean, that's why I do this, because it's like, oh my God, it's as you said, community is so important and it's so much easier to do with others,
Yeah.
right? With others.
No,
And
what's
it's so
interesting
encouraging.
with this one situation, because I was told of a situation I was starting to help someone, and they just gave me a little bit, and I said, oh yeah, you need a therapist, and I was going on, but not until more came out was it determined like this is emotionally abusive. You know, this is like this crossed the line, and the dynamics, and like you don't know that you've crossed that line when you keep it to
No,
yourself and you don't tell people and you allow it, and it just keeps worse and worse and worse, and the years go by and you allow things that are just not okay. You wouldn't want your friend to be in a situation like that, or your daughter, or someone you love. So why do we do that? Why do we just suck it up and keep going and don't tell people and excuse it? You know, I think that's what we tend to do when we isolate ourselves and we just are not in touch, right?
yes, 100%. The silence from the partner end is crazy. I could not find any resources for partners through this. And so I am 100% committed to making that community
Yeah,
because
thank you
we
for
need
that.
it. We need
Yes,
it. Yes.
quite the service. And
Thank
no
you.
better than someone who's that's life experience. You've experienced it, you know what works.
Yeah.
And creating safety so someone could tell that story for the first time, that's big. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you too. I have loved this conversation and I love just how reflective you've been and how you went there with me to explore, your personal story and how that got you to where you are today. Thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you for your work, and let's make this a better world for many, many, many of us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. There was so much packed in that interview. I don't even know where to start with trying to give my three biggest takeaways, but I'm gonna try because Pia dropped so much wisdom. And so my three biggest takeaways I want you to actually start putting into practice today from this interview is number one, see the story behind the reaction. We already talked about everybody has crap, right? And sometimes trauma doesn't always look like trauma. It shows up in the way we argue, our disconnect, and the way we protect ourselves. So instead of taking it personally, I want you to pause and get curious about what might really be going on underneath. And number two, stop the silence. Watch for the clues, do something about it. Don't be afraid to talk to your kids about what's safe and what's not. Teach them to tell someone if something feels wrong. And even if your kid is struggling with COVID, with school, friendship, or just feeling like themselves again, let's ask, would you like to talk to someone? That simple question can open a door to safety and support. And number three, look for the silver lining. I loved the concept of post-traumatic growth, the idea that even after pain and hardship, we can find new meaning, strength, and deeper connection. It doesn't erase what happened, but it allows us to turn our past into a fuel for a healthier future. And remember, healing is bigger than just you. Every step you take towards breaking cycles of conflict in your relationship ripples out to your family, your kids, and your community. All right, Pia, thank you so much for being here and sharing not just your expertise, but your heart and your story. I know this conversation is one you'll want to come back to again, and please share it with anyone who you think would benefit from it. And I will see you next week.
All right, that's a wrap for today on Love and Trauma, the real deal. Big thanks to my guests for sharing their insights. Couldn't have done it without you. Now, for those of you looking to take this journey further, I've got something special. Head to my website to grab Real Tactics, Real Healing, a survivor's playbook for navigating a relationship with a trauma survivor. It's packed with everything you need to know, do, and say to navigate the emotional minefield, find your balance, and regain your self-worth and happiness.